always thought betrayal would come with a crack of thunder, some dramatic moment you could point to later and say, that's when everything changed. But for me, it arrived as a text message. My mom didn't call. She didn't even hesitate. She just sent 4 words that shifted the ground under my feet. Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding. A second later, my sister Serena liked the message, as if my absence was a favor I was doing for everyone. I stare at my phone, feeling something inside me snap. Not loud, not violent, just a quiet, definite break. The kind you don't hear, but never forget. I typed back, great choice.
Short, clean,
Final. And with that, I stopped being their safety net. They had no idea what was coming next. Before I tell you everything, tell me where you're listening from, so I know I'm not the only one who's ever felt like the outsider in their own family. I wish I could say that message shocked me. I really do. But it only confirmed what I'd spent years trying not to admit. My name is Valentina, and in my family I was never the favorite. Not even close. I was the reliable one. The organized one. The one who showed up early with solutions, a color-coded plan, and a payment method. That was my role. Assigned long before I was old enough to know I could choose a different one. From the outside, my family looked polished, almost enviable. My mother, Marissa, had the kind of smile that could light up a room or cut through it, depending on which angle you stood. My father, Edward, floated through life quietly, stepping aside anytime conflict approached. And Serena? Beautiful, adored, endlessly excused. She walked into a room, and people made space. I walked in, and people handed me responsibilities. The sad part is, for a long time, I didn't mind. I liked structure. I'm a project manager. Give me a spreadsheet and a deadline, and I'm home. People, though? People were unpredictable. So when they asked me to help plan Serena's wedding, I said yes, automatically, instinctively, the way I always did. I handled the deposits, the venue coordination, the lighting team, the catering schedules. Every bill ended up on my desk, and I paid it without hesitation. Not because Serena deserved it, but because my mother expected it. There was only one person who truly saw me, my grandmother. She listened in a way that made time slow down. Out in her small garden, she'd clip roses and tell me that strength wasn't just about what you carry, it was also about what you refused to pick up.
I didn't understand then.
I thought strength meant saying yes to everything. But as the wedding drew closer, something in the air tightened, like string someone else was pulling. Marissa praised Serena's decisions and treated mine like inconveniences. Edward repeated how grateful Serena was, though she hadn't thanked me once. And during one meeting, when I suggested adjusting the guest count to match the budget, Serena didn't even look up from her phone. She just sighed and said, "Val, can't you just make it work? You always do." That sentence sat in my chest for days. Heavy, familiar, suffocating. Still, I kept going. I visited my grandmother before every major decision, letting the quiet of her home settle my thoughts. She sensed something was wrong, but I didn't want to burden her. She'd seen enough disappointment in this family to last a lifetime. Then came the morning of that text. I was reviewing the final payment schedule in my apartment. Sunlight caught the small silver pendant around my neck, the one my grandmother had given me for clarity. Funny how clarity always shows up right before something breaks. That was the moment I finally saw it. I wasn't part of their celebration. I was just funding it. And for the first time, that truth didn't hurt. It steadied me. Because when a role dies, something new gets room to breathe. And that's where the next part begins. In the days after that message, the family group chat took on a strange, artificial shine. Every update was too cheerful, too perfectly curated, like they were all performing Unity for an audience that no longer included me. That was the first sign. The second came disguised as excitement. Marissa announced she wanted to turn the wedding into an entire week of events, dinners, brunches, rehearsals, meet and greets, all to impress Serena's future in-laws. She said it lightly, like she was choosing a paint color. But while she talked, her eyes flicked, just for a second, toward the small brown envelope on the counter. My grandmother's savings. The emergency fund she treated like sacred ground. I froze. She tried to cover it, but intention has a way of leaking through the cracks. "Mom," I said slowly, "that's not what that money is for." She blinked at me, confused only by the fact that I had dared to object. "Valentina, don't be dramatic. Serena is only getting married once." I looked at Serena, hoping she'd understand the weight of what our mother was suggesting. But she only shrugged, adjusting the sleeve of the new dress I had quietly paid for. "It's not a big deal, Val," she said. "Grandma doesn't even use that money." My stomach tightened. They had talked about this. Maybe planned it. Definitely without me. Later that week, I took my grandmother to a dress fitting. She moved slowly but proudly, her warm hand tucked into mine. While she stood in front of the mirror smoothing the fabric over her hips, she whispered, "I heard your mother talking. They're preparing things without you." Her voice trembled with truth, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be devastating. I swallowed hard, unsure whether to say what I already knew. The fitting assistant called us over before I could answer, giving me a moment I wasn't ready for. 2 days later, everything snapped into place. I stopped by Marissa's house to drop off the finalized rehearsal dinner timeline. Serena was curled on the couch, her phone raised, her thumb hovering over the group chat. "Oh," she said when she finally noticed me. "Didn't know you were coming by." Her tone wasn't hostile. It was worse, effortlessly dismissive. Marissa barely looked up. "We're confirming guest seating. Serena found a better layout than the one you sent." Better, not kinder, not fairer, not more reasonable. Just better because Serena had done it. Then Serena's screen lit up. And there it was. The same message that had uninvited me. Right in front of me, her thumb tapped the heart icon next to it, a little gray shape turning red, a tiny confirmation that my erasure was approved, endorsed, and applauded. A like. A single, stupid like. It didn't make a sound, but inside me, something cracked softly, like thin ice giving way under quiet pressure. Serena didn't even look up. She just locked her phone and said, "It's for the best, Val." Everyone agrees. Everyone. The room felt suddenly heavier, the air thick enough to swallow. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. "They're preparing things without you." This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was intentional, coordinated, and executed with the kind of casual cruelty people use when swatting away an inconvenience. And, in that moment, I understood. I wasn't dealing with a mistake. I was dealing with a plan. The night after Serena liked the message that erased me, I sat alone in my apartment with the wedding payments pulled up on my laptop. Line after line glowed on the screen. Venue deposits, lighting adjustments, catering schedules, floral installments. All approved. All paid by me. It didn't look like a celebration anymore. It looked like a ledger documenting my own disappearance. For years, I told myself my family didn't mean to take advantage of me, that I was just helping, that my support made things easier. But sitting there, staring at those numbers, something in me finally shifted. Staring at those payments, I finally saw the truth. They weren't relying on me. They were consuming me. My phone buzzed. A new message in the family thread. Serena had sent the updated seating chart. "Mom wants my layout instead." No please. No thank you. No acknowledgement of the hours I'd spent building a plan that worked. It was surreal how quickly cruelty becomes routine. How easily someone can turn your effort into background noise. I closed my laptop before I could second-guess myself. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. It felt like something inside me had gone still and sharp, quietly decisive. I opened a private message to my mother and typed 2 words. Great choice. My reflection stared back at me in the dark window, calm, composed. A woman finally stepping out of a role she'd never chosen. Then I wrote the sentence they would never expect. Then you'll be free of my payments, too. No explanation. No anger. Just truth. I hit send. The silence that followed felt almost holy. I opened my laptop again, this time with purpose. One by one, like pulling threads from a tapestry, I reviewed every contract tied to the wedding. catering, lighting, venue,
Decor.
rentals, coordination. Every agreement linked to my personal account. Every approval under my name. The authority they acted like they owned had always been mine. I didn't need to argue with them. I just needed to stop enabling them. I emailed each vendor individually, referencing contract sections and timelines. We will not be moving forward. Please cancel the pending invoice. Do not process additional payments. I didn't mention family drama. This wasn't revenge gossip. This was boundaries, clean, steady, professional. As I worked, a strange peace settled over the room. Not satisfaction. Not vengeance. Alignment. Like I was finally acting in a way that matched the truth of what I felt. Around midnight, a soft knock came at my door. It was my grandmother. Her small frame looked even smaller under the hallway light. She stepped inside and sat on my couch, smoothing her skirt, the gesture she always made when she was gathering courage. I know they hurt you, she said quietly, but you don't have to carry them anymore. Her voice trembled. That tremble did more to break me open than anything my family had said. Because she knew. She had lived it. She had been treated the same way, an afterthought, a resource, a tool to pull from when convenient. She understood what it meant to love people who didn't protect you. I took her hand. I'm done carrying them, Grandma. I'm choosing us this time. She nodded, her eyes shining. Not with sadness, but with something like pride. Before she left, she leaned close and whispered, "When they come home, we'll be ready." And for the first time in my life, I believed her. The morning they were scheduled to return felt strangely quiet, like the whole city was holding its breath. My grandmother sat at the kitchen table, folding and unfolding the same napkin, her eyes drifting to the window every few seconds. I brewed tea just to keep my hands occupied, the steam warming my face as reality settled deeper into my chest. This was the day everything shifted. I checked my phone one last time. Nothing from my family. Not even a courtesy update about their flight. Of course not. As far as they were concerned, I didn't exist unless they needed a solution. But today, they were going to need something else entirely. "Are you sure you're ready?" my grandmother asked softly. I nodded. More than ready. We arrived at the airport earlier than necessary, my grandmother holding onto my arm as we walked through the terminal buzzed with noise, but beside my grandmother, everything felt steady. Her presence was the anchor I needed my whole life. Quiet, warm, honest. Every step through that airport felt like reclaiming ground I hadn't realized I'd lost. Our attorney, Mason, met us near the arrivals hall. A calm, centered, the kind of man who brought order into a room just by standing in it. He nodded once, then flipped open a folder. "Everything's in order," he said. "We'll wait until they exit baggage claim. They'll likely approach you first. Be prepared for that." Prepared for their version of the story? I murmured. He offered a faint, knowing smile. People who depend on you rarely prepare to face a world where you've stopped giving. My grandmother squeezed my hand. A ripple of movement near the sliding doors drew our attention as passengers spilled out, tired eyes, wrinkled clothes, rolling luggage. And then I saw them. My mother, Marissa, leading the way, back straight, chin elevated, wearing the expression of someone returning from a triumphant holiday. Serena followed close behind, dragging an oversized suitcase with practiced dramatics. Damon trailed last, face buried in his phone like the world beyond the screen didn't exist. For a split second, instinct tugged at me, the old reflex to greet them, to fix the mood, to shrink small and keep the peace. But that version of me lived in a life I'd already walked away from. My mother spotted us first. Confusion flickered across her face, quickly replaced by irritation. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, pulling her coat tighter. "You didn't need to pick us up. We already have a ride." "We're not here to pick you up," I said. Serena rolled her eyes. "Then what? You're here to apologize for ruining our wedding plans." My grandmother inhaled sharply. Before I could answer, Mason stepped forward. "Good morning. My name is Mason Hill. I represent Valentina and her grandmother in a matter requiring your immediate attention." The color drained from my mother's face. Serena blinked rapidly, her breath quick and shallow. This must be a joke, Marissa said, forcing a laugh. A lawyer? For what? For the financial exploitation concerning wedding-related funds, Mason replied evenly, handing her an envelope. And the attempt to use your mother's savings without consent. My mother snatched the envelope but didn't open it. We didn't exploit anyone, she snapped. Everything was agreed upon. Valentina offered to help. She always does. That's the problem, I said quietly. You expected it. Not because I wanted to help, but because you refused to see me as anything other than a source of solutions. Serena stepped toward me, jabbing a finger at my chest. You abandoned your responsibilities. You ruined everything. All you had to do was stay out of the way. Stay out of the way, my grandmother echoed, her voice trembling but firm. You told her not to come. You told my granddaughter she wasn't welcome at a wedding she paid for. Serena's glare faltered. My mother spun toward my grandmother. Mother, stop being dramatic. This is a family matter. No, my grandmother lifted her chin, small but unshaken. Family doesn't discard one person to elevate another. A crowd had begun forming behind us, travelers slowing down, murmuring, watching the scene unfold like a movie they hadn't meant to catch, but suddenly couldn't walk away from. My mother hated scenes. Her cheeks reddened as she glanced around, as if the public embarrassment was somehow my fault, too. We didn't do anything wrong, Marissa insisted. You're twisting this. Mason opened another folder and held up the contents. These are copies of the messages sent to Valentina, including the one uninviting her from the event. And this. He lifted another page. Is documentation of every payment she made. I watched my mother's. Mason cleared his throat, perfectly calm as he addressed the room. Notice regarding the attempted redirection of your grandmother's emergency fund, he said. An account Valentina has been monitoring, since she is the only family member who has never withdrawn from it. Serena clutched the envelope like it might burn through her fingers. Marissa spun toward me, voice thin and trembling with anger. How dare you bring strangers into our private affairs? You made it private when you pushed me out, I said steadily. And you made it legal when you tried to use Grandma's savings, because you finally ran out of mine. Damon, who'd been unusually quiet, exhaled sharply. Look, can we all calm down? This is being blown out of proportion. Blown out of proportion? My grandmother repeated. You encouraged Serena to ask for more money, more favors, more support, things she never earned. Damon's jaw twitched, but Serena snapped first. Just stop talking. Please. Something inside her collapsed then, her shoulders dropping, her confidence leaking away like air from a balloon. She didn't look like the gleaming bride she'd imagined. She looked like a child caught stealing. My mother's hand shook as she shoved the papers back toward Mason. We can fix this. Just tell us what you want, Valentina. I breathed in, slow and steady. I want you to understand that I'm done, I said. Done being your safety net. Done paying for the consequences you never learn from. Done pretending we're a family when you treat me like a mistake. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. So you're punishing us? Serena whispered. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. Mason stepped forward again. There are procedures you'll need to follow. You must respond to these notices in the given time frame. And until this matter is resolved, you are not permitted to access the grandmother's accounts. Marissa finally opened the envelope. Her eyes skimmed the first line, and her whole expression cracked. This could get us in trouble, she whispered. It already did, my grandmother said. My mother's confidence disintegrated. Valentina, please, we're family. I met her eyes with a clarity I had earned the hard way. Family protects each other, not just themselves. For the first time in my life, she had no comeback. Serena wiped her cheek, mascara streaking. Damon shifted uncomfortably. And then Edward, the one person who had stayed silent, finally spoke. I'm sorry, Val, he said softly. We should have done better. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever hear from him. I nodded, accepting the words without letting them excuse the damage. Mason closed his folder. We're done here. My grandmother took my arm, her grip steady. As we turned to leave, my mother's voice cracked behind me. Valentina, what are we supposed to do now? I stopped just long enough to look back.
Figured out, I said.
The same way you expected me to.
And then I walked away.
Not out of anger, out of freedom. Real, bone-deep freedom I hadn't felt in years. Everything settled the way truth always does, quietly, but permanently. The filings moved forward. Grandma's savings were finally protected. No more borrowing. No more guilt dressed up as tradition. No more someone else's emergencies falling on my shoulders. I visited her more often. We sat in her small garden while she trimmed roses like she did when I was a child. Except now she looked lighter, freer, like she'd been holding her breath for decades without realizing it. The wedding plans collapsed overnight. Vendors sent cancellation receipts. My phone buzzed with messages, angry, embarrassed, or painfully quiet. I didn't respond. Not from spite. From closure. One afternoon, Grandma rested her hand on mine. You saved both of us, she whispered. But I didn't feel like a savior. Just someone finally stepping into her own life. So I applied for a volunteer position at an advocacy center for older adults, for people like her, who deserved protection long before anyone noticed they needed it. For once, I wasn't fixing chaos. I was choosing purpose. Looking back, I used to think love meant carrying everything for people who claimed they needed me. But real love, the kind that heals instead of drains, never asks you to disappear so others can shine. My family's choices didn't define me. My boundaries did. Walking away wasn't the end of something broken. It was the beginning of something honest. If this story touched you, tell me where you're listening from, and share the moment you finally chose yourself. Drop your experience in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that heal, awaken, and empower.